Hello, Seiiti Arata. Today we're going to have a conversation about a topic that is a little bit different, but is very important. We're going to be talking about emotional vampires. So when you hear that term, you might be thinking, wow, emotional vampires? What do you mean with that? Is there some black magic involved, some type of a mystical power? No, not the type of vampire. When we say emotional vampire today, this is a metaphor. This is a way to describe the people around you who probably, even without having the intention, they end up draining your ambition, your vitality, they suck your energy. How they do that? There might be friends, even people in your family who are always putting you down, always discouraging you. These are people who make you focus on your limits, on your limitations, instead of putting your focus on what you can achieve, on your potential. Do you see the difference? The funny thing is that often these people don't have bad intentions, but the result is that they end up sucking your motivation, draining your energy. And then what happens? You start to doubt yourself. Your confidence disappears every time you share some of your goals, some of your big dreams with these people. You know, in a way, they're pulling you down. Think about the classic idea of the bucket of crabs. Every time a crab tries to get out of the bucket, some other one grabs and pulls the other crab back down. It's more or less like that. There are people pulling you down in the same level of collective mediocrity, preventing you from growth. So how do they do this? They use sentences that you may have heard before, like, hey, be careful, huh? Or, that's not for people like us. Or the classic one, wow, just keep your feet up in the ground. These are the kinds of sentences that they use. Now, when we talk about an emotional vampire, we're not talking about a vampire, as you can see from the movies, the ones that suck blood. These are emotional vampires. They suck up your energy, your belief that you have potential. And they do this with many types of limiting patterns. And you might be accepting this into your life. Do you see how this works? In other words, what I'm proposing here to you is to pay more attention. That's the exercise. Start paying attention to the people who are close to you, people in your family, your friends, because even unconsciously, they might be sabotaging your dreams, your ambitions. Now, why do they do this? Maybe because they're projecting their own fears and their limitations onto you. So when you try to do something useful in your life, when you're trying to grow, when you're trying to go after your goals, they end up discouraging you. Now, it's not malice. I'm saying that when your goals are about to succeed, what happens is that those excuses that they have for having their lives is more evident that you were able to achieve. Why can't they? So it's a way to protect their own identity as well. There is an emotional sabotage happening, and often it is disguised as protection. So what can we do together today? What I'm proposing is that you will develop your emotional intelligence. What I'm suggesting here, you'll be able to go after your goals without needing the approval of other people, particularly people who don't have the same audacity, who don't share the same dreams as you. And then when you do that, you finally break free from this invisible prison that is keeping you within the comfort limits of this group around you. You see, maybe you don't need more motivation. What I want you to consider is that maybe you need fewer people demotivating you. What you call today your family support might actually be emotional sabotage disguised as protection. Now, why disguised? Think of me. While you believe that you're being loved and cared for, your social circle might be operating like an invisible thermostat. What does it mean? That whenever you try to grow, whenever your temperature rises, they unconsciously pull you back to the comfort level of the group. So the question I ask you is, are these emotional vampires around you draining your ambition? Let's find out together how many of the following characteristics you recognize in your life. My invitation is that you stay here until the end, because together we're going to be discovering how you can escape from an invisible social trap that is condemning you to a life of mediocrity and regret. Think about it. Every day you are in this circle and you're wasting opportunities that might never come back. You're dangerously getting close to a lifetime of just wondering, oh, what if I had done this or that? Insecure people belittle others to feel bigger. Let's say if you identify with the following situation. Imagine you are in that job that has been suffocating you for 3 years and you have that secret dream of quitting everything and start your own business. But every time you mention that possibility, your family immediately reminds you that most businesses fail. Most people lose money. So it is too risky in times like this. So what happens? You absorb all these fears as if they were your own, and then you continue to show up at your office every Monday feeling like your soul is dying every single day. Or another scenario, maybe you want to diversify your investments, learn more about money, study stocks, Bitcoin, real estate funds. But then as soon as you share that idea, people say, well, that's not for you. You don't understand that. That's too dangerous. Just keep your money in the savings account. That is more safe. So you end up accepting the scarcity mentality. That is how your money will inevitably end up being eroded by inflation while other people are learning about how to multiply their wealth. So now I ask you, the type of person who's talking those things or sabotaging your goals, have you noticed conversations changing when you start to share your dreams? Have you started to keep your own ambitions to yourself because you're tired to hear those opinions that kind of put you down? The pattern is almost always the same. You see, you have a genuine impulse to grow, to do something different. You share that desire with the people that you consider to be close to you, but what you get in return is just more realism that actually is pessimism. So this is what you have to understand. These people are not protecting you from failure. They're protecting themselves from the discomfort of seeing somebody near them having the courage to try something. You might think that these are the people who care about you, but deep down, they might be causing some resistance inside of you. You have that feeling that you're always swimming against the current, always having to justify why you want to grow, but every time you make a little bit of progress, you can't even celebrate properly because there's always a but or be careful, however, and it's difficult to dream bigger because there's always this inner voice like, who do you think you are? And then it's even more complicated to continue on your path, on your long-term plans. Then you remember the last time that somebody told you, oh, that's really amazing. Tell me more about it. That's very rare. When somebody suggests that you should think bigger, your automatic reaction is to think, well, but what if it goes wrong? The simple idea of leaving your comfort zone gives you anxiety because the voices of everyone who has ever told you to keep your feet on the ground, that echoes in your head. Dreaming of an extraordinary life makes you feel guilty, as if there was kind of an ingratitude about what you already have. And the central point is that you have lost something that successful people consider to be absolutely normal, which is the ability to have ambitions without having to ask anybody for attention, for permission. So growth has become abandoning the people you love. Having goals is becoming being arrogant. This is exactly why you sabotage your own projects before anyone else is there to be criticizing them. You no longer see the possibilities because you're addicted to the approval of other people. Now you're programmed to avoid social discomfort. And when you grow, these people become smaller by comparison. What happens here is a mechanism that you need to understand. Your family, they project on you the fears that they have. What I mean project fears? Let's look at a practical example. If your father says, well, starting your business is very risky, you're better off keep your job that is more secure. Basically, he's not just thinking about your future, he's also thinking about his own frustrations that he never tried to do it, his own excuses to have the career that he has. You see, you have to be thinking about this, like how people play it safe and they project those ideas onto you. Let me give another example. When your mother says that investing is for rich people, it's not for people like us, she's projecting decades of conditioning that she received about money and social class on you. Because if you are able to actually multiply your wealth using smart investments, it kind of exposes the fact that she could have done the same instead of passively accepting inflation corroding her money. So the result of all of this is that you end up absorbing what psychologists say it is a belief ceiling of your social group. Heard of that? It's a set of rules that nobody has actually told you openly about what is possible, what is realistic, what is available for people like us, but you kind of know it exists. You've inherited these mental limitations of the people you are around all the time. Your people around you, they share this type of vision, and you don't even realize. And that is why perhaps you automatically think small, why you plan for failure, why you always choose the safest option. Your brain has been conditioned to operate within the possibility that is seen by your social circle. So you don't say, oh, how can I prepare to succeed? You think, what if I'm being too ambitious, and what if people criticize me later? So every time you sabotage your dreams to not bother other people, this is the type of danger that you have right now, because your brain is treating your growth as a threat to your relationships that you value so much. That is why you feel guilty about not trying to get things done. When you try to move to another city with more possibilities, that's why you feel guilty when you try to invest your time learning skills that could transform your personal life, your financial life. You haven't just lost the dream, the ability to dream big. This is the problem of internal locus of control, the fundamental belief that you have power over your own future. Instead of that, you have the victim mentality that is disguised as humility whenever you passively accept the circumstances because, well, those things are not meant for people like me. The truth is that the people who have the most freedom in the world are the ones who can pursue their goals without needing the approval of other people. That's key. You have inherited the fears of others as if it would be yours. The inheritance of fears, what we're talking about here, it creates 3 devastating consequences that I want to show you, because this could completely change your life. Let's look at the first consequence. The first one is that you'll never develop your full potential because you're always operating within the limits that are imposed by your group. So how that happens? You accept a lower salary because, well, it's stable. You avoid making investments because otherwise it's too complicated. You stay in a mediocre relationship because, well, at least you're not alone. Now, the second consequence is that you develop chronic guilt in those moments when you try to grow because you've lost touch with your own inner voice. When you finally gather the courage to enroll in a course that could change your career, you feel selfish for wasting money on random things. Instead of doing investments, you feel that's presumptuous to try to do better than other people. The third consequence is very serious, is your ability to make decisions based on your own values is deteriorating. And this affects your career, your finances, your personal fulfillment. You stop asking yourself, what do you really want? And instead of that, you're always asking, what will other people think about me? So your choices are more filtered by the emotional comfort of other people instead of your own vision for the future. And that is why you change your mind 5 times before you make an important decision. That's why your conversations about the future are always careful with a lot of however, but that's why you even feel lost about the people who kind of support you, but actually not really. Deep down, you're not afraid of failure. You're afraid of bothering people. Think of me. That friend of yours who has never left his comfort zone, they get uncomfortable about you when you start to make a business because you have courage, and that exposes their lack of courage. That family member of yours who doesn't know anything about investments gets anxious when you're talking about the result of your investments. Your colleagues have been complaining about their jobs for years, by the way. They get defensive when you have the plan to start your own business because it exposes that they are being lazy. With every single day that you don't defend yourself from those people interfering in your life, you're losing an important connection with who you really are. You're wasting capabilities that might never be recovered. You're accumulating regrets that will haunt you for the next years of your life. And that is why this is so important, this is so urgent, that you say no to those limiting options before it's too late. So my invitation is that you take a moment, go to the link arata.se/how-to-say-no, then you can master better communication techniques to protect from this type of social sabotage. So now let's do a few exercises, starting with the mirror test. That's what I want to propose, a strategy called the emotional mirror test. There is a psychological pattern called a defensive projection. What is that? That's when people discourage in other people what they themselves are afraid to try. This is a technique I'm going to be teaching you, how you can train your ability when people are projecting their own limitations onto you. The idea is for you to learn how to generally get feedback, but protect it from getting unconscious sabotage. Next time somebody is discouraging one of your goals, instead of you immediately reacting, just make a pause. You're going to observe the emotions behind the words of that person. Do they seem anxious or defensive? Is there any sense of urgency in their voice? Discouragement based on genuine care generally has a calm tone. The person is inviting you to consider alternatives. Now, discouragement based on fear, that is charged with emotions that are not very good. So you can ask yourself, has this person ever tried to do something similar to what you are proposing? If the answer is no, you might be listening to the opinion of somebody who has never even tested their own assumptions. They might be saying it is dangerous, but they don't even know. Somebody has never driven a car will tell you, don't drive that car. Somebody who has always had a safe, basic job will tell you, don't open your own business. Somebody who has never invested money, keep all their money on their saving accounts, will say, don't try to invest. So observe whether the other person is also offering you solutions instead of just showing you problems. Somebody who genuinely wants what is best for you will find ways to minimize the risks and maximize your chances of success. Now, somebody who's just projecting their own limitations on you will only see obstacles and problems and danger, because that's how they protect themselves from trying something new. They'll be talking about all the examples of failure, about problems that happened, people who have lost money, people who got hurt. So take this internal test. If I were extremely successful in what I'm proposing, how would I feel about this person? Instead of just feeling like you're being attacked, or that the success of the other person actually bothers you, you feel happy, well, that is a good way to go. This will develop your ability to distinguish real protection from unconscious sabotage. And you can always remember that when somebody's projecting limitations onto you, they're actually revealing the size of their own mental prison. There's another strategy, which is the selective safety choice. Let's go to the second strategy now. This will help you to create a more controlled social environment where you can share your ambitions without fear of sabotage. That's the selective safety circle. The goal here is to help you to develop discernment about with whom and when you should review your goals. What I want you to do first is to identify 2 or 3 people in your life who demonstrate a consistent pattern of genuine encouragement, and then pay attention. I'm not talking about people who agree with everything you say, that's not the point, but people who ask you curious questions when you share a new goal, instead of just pointing out the problems. For example, when you talk about your idea of starting your own business, they ask, oh, really? What type of business? Instead of saying, oh, business, no, that's super dangerous, don't do it. When you mention about learning about money and investments, they're like, oh, what books are you going to read? Instead of saying, don't you think that's too dangerous? So after you identify these people, do a little bit of a test. Share a small goal and then observe. Is the initial reaction positive, like, oh, that's interesting, tell me more? Or is it, oh, are you sure? That sounds dangerous. The people in your safety circle are people who show real curiosity, they show real concern, not the concern to put you down. And then you can verbalize your ambitious ideas later. You say, I'm studying investments to diversify my portfolio. I know it's risky, but I'm thinking to first learn, to first get good books, and then see what happens. And then you don't have to be defending yourself when you start speaking. And about everybody else, well, for them, they're going to develop a standard response whenever you share your goals. Oh, that sounds dangerous. And you say, well, yeah, I might research a little bit more. And then you just change your topic. You don't have to be giving explanations to everybody about the dreams that you choose to pursue, right? You don't need to justify why you want to have more money in your life, why you have an idea for a business, you don't want to be with a mediocre job. You can do your own thing. So gradually, this will expand your circle as you find more and more people who are able, who demonstrate the ability to support you with genuine curiosity and desire for your growth. The quality of your social environment is so important. It's much more than the quantity of people in your life. You don't need to have everybody's approval. What you need is the company of those who are walking in the same direction as you. Okay, and finally, strategy number 3 is a response reprogramming. This is the third and final strategy I'll share with you. It is a technique to help you to recondition your automatic reactions to discouragement. The goal is to develop your emotional resilience so that you can clearly maintain your goals, even under social pressure. This is why this is the social response reprogramming. How it works. When somebody is discouraging one of your goals, instead of you going into defense mode or simply giving up, you can respond internally. Okay, thank you for revealing your own limits to me. Don't say out loud, right? But what does that do? You understand what is the nature of the other person, and it's not about you. Oh, investing is for crazy people. And you say, now I know more about you. This is not a universal truth about investments. That's what is going on in the world of that person. And what can you say is, well, you can say, well, I will consider your perspective. Thank you very much. And then you just change the subject. Otherwise, there's going to be an unnecessary confrontation. You listened, you registered, now you're moving on, and you do not allow that person, the limits of that person, to impact your own plans. And there's one more thing. Immediately after receiving discouragement, I want you to do a mental exercise. Visualize yourself achieving exactly what was discouraged. If somebody is discouraging you from starting a business, you can visualize your prosperous business, your financial freedom, the pride of having built something very interesting with your own hands. And that will help you to reconnect you with your emotions, your original vision, your dreams. And also the habit of asking yourself internally, does that person have the results in that area in which they're giving me advice? If somebody has no results to show and they're telling you what to do or not to do, the opinion of that person does not count. Does not count, right? You have to put a different way to opinions of people who really have experience, that know what they're talking about. And finally, create a visual daily ritual to reaffirm your goals, regardless of external opinions. So you go, you say, what is important to you, what are your values, and then you don't get lost in the expectations of other people. If you want to start your own business, you do it because that's what you want, not to impress other people. If you want to build wealth in your life, that's because it's going to be good for you, not to impress other people. This is the social response reprogramming. It will help you to really filter out what is not useful in your life. Your potential is too big to fit into the comfort zone of other people. So after our conversation, you can see the difference that all of this makes, the practical differences of freeing yourself from this emotional sabotage. Now you have your own life ahead, and you can distinguish what is projection, the limitation of other people, and your own ability to make things happen, your own potential, instead of just looking at the fear that is growing inside of you because of other people. You don't want to allow those people to be getting your energy. That makes it difficult for you to execute your plans. So instead of you spending months trying to convince the people around you that you have a good idea, that you can make it happen, don't do that. Instead of justifying ideas to your friends about why you want to do this or that, don't do that. Just focus on your own thing. Don't listen to opinions of people who don't have any results. Because then you stop resenting people for their own limitations. They are no longer having the power to project their limitations on you. Otherwise, they'll be discouraging your plans. Even if they don't have any malice involved, they are basically sabotaging you. That's how you'll be able to maintain your autonomy. Your career accelerates because now you start making decisions based on real opportunities, not on fears from others. You accept that professional challenges that you have are in your hands to determine what can you do and not based on the fear of other people. You can negotiate your salary based on your value in the company, not about what is there for people like us. Then you stop accepting mediocrity as your destiny. Your future will be so much better in all dimensions, in your relationship, in your finances, in everything that you do, because now you're able to build things while other people are just having contentment with whatever is thrown at them. The quality of your social environment determines the quality of your results. That's how you will be able to build the life you want, by allowing just a small group of people who have positive contributions to bring to you. The ability to grow no matter what is the social group you belong to, that will reveal maturity. And without this independence, you're going to be forever operating without being aligned with your vision, your values, what you can really do. So remember this. Use the emotional mirror test in your next conversation about your goals. Identify 1-2 people who are in your safety circle that you can share ideas without getting discouragement. With each week you postpone learning how to communicate assertively, you're basically condemning yourself to more months of frustrations and limitations imposed by others. Don't do this. Otherwise, you're allowing people to emotionally manipulate you into giving up your dreams. You have to learn how to say no to the limiting opinions of others. That's why I invite you now to go to the link arata.se/how-to-say-no, and then you can master communication techniques to shield you and your goals against social sabotage.